Hello friends, it's your buddy Nick here with Game with the Guys. We are hanging out with Fake in Dark Souls 3. This is the Profaned Capital. That's what it's called in English. In the Japanese version of the game, this area is actually called the City of Sin. And it takes on a little different meaning when you call it the City of Sin. And in this area we'll actually see a lot of things that kind of fall in line with that idea of sin. And when we think sin, we obviously think Velka. But the question is it Velka? Was it Velka was the one that punished these people for their sins? And that there isn't a clear answer to that. It's possible, but there's no evidence that says that she did or didn't. And in this area you'll see that we have a lot of these sewer centipedes. And when we first came through here we found a little bit of a purple moss clump up at the top of the area. And FromSoft is very good about kind of doing a little foreshadowing and giving you items before you'll actually need them. And so it was foreshadowing that this would be a toxic area by giving us the antidote to the toxin itself. Ran out of stamina there. And I picked up, I believe I just picked up a poison gem. Wasn't really paying attention because that's not the real prize here. What we're really looking for is the curse bite ring. And if I go ahead, I'll slowly walk back and I'll show this to you. But this is going to have pretty much the same description as the other bite rings, but this obviously will do the curse resistance there, and you see 150 points of the curse resistance. So let's go ahead and just get back over to some dry land that's a little less toxic than the rest of this area. And these little spells here make this area a lot more a lot more reasonable to go through with a cleric build. And I didn't quite get up to... Oh, no, I did. I guess I did get just enough to get the boost from the Lloyd's sword ring. So we came through here a little bit before, but now I'm going to go through and get the rest of the items and talk more about the area itself. Before, when we came through, we were kind of just really focusing on the Yhorm dungeon. But now we can actually look at the capital itself. And I talked a little bit about the architecture. And so you can kind of see, you know, these columns that are very much like a Greek or a Roman design. And then, well, this isn't a very good example, but the Yhorm dungeon does not really follow those same design features. Here we get Wrath of the Gods. Fitting? Was it the gods' wrath that destroyed the Profaned Capital? So this is a primal form of force, creates a protective, or I should say powerful shockwave, and also protective. You can knock away, you know, arrows and stuff, so protective in that sense. Wrath of the Gods is an epic tale, while force is a woefully incomplete version of the Yhorm. This primal account of the profound fury emits a shockwave that also inflicts damage. So emit force does damage, and then I don't think we even have force. Maybe we do, hiding somewhere. But Wrath of the Gods is going to emanate from yourself and create a massive, powerful force wave around you. So that's a favorite item of trolling around the world. Right down there is what's called a monstrosity of sin. You'll see that it has basically a hand for a head, so it's also sometimes called a hand ogre. But Monstrosities of Sin is actually a much more fitting title, as we'll see some of the lore on it. These guys are very susceptible to bleed. They do a lot of damage. They have a grab attack that will steal souls from you and most likely kill you. So this one here, what we can do is actually just kind of use Dorothy's Gnaw on it, and you'll see that this is doing quite a bit of damage because of the bleed buildup that's going along with it. No, I guess I should just put him out of his misery with this. Maybe I'll do a plunging attack here. Nope, I ran out of juice. And you can really get a good look inside of the hand there. It's quite reminiscent of Manus' hand from Dark Souls 1, the final boss of the Abyss, and the DLC, I should say. So here we get the Court Sorcerer set, and we saw a little bit about the Court Sorcerer when we found Logan's Scroll, but this is a hood worn by Court Sorcerers of the Profaned Capital. This tall, dark headpiece suggests that they have also been oracles. They may have also been oracles. I don't know what about a tall hood or headpiece that says they might have been oracles, but that's fine. There are many sorcerers who claim to heirship to the great sage Big Hat Logan. Very odd wording. And the Profaned Capital houses one of the two leading schools. And we talked a little bit about that before, how the Court Sorcerers and then also the Crystal Sages kind of followed in the two different lines of Big Hat Logan. And it seems the Court Sorcerers kind of followed the original line, while the Crystal Sages followed the Crystal line. And let's just go ahead and we can put some of this stuff on here. The formal gold stitching suggests they may have also been oracles. So this design here just screams oracles, apparently. Here are the trousers. So it's actually a pretty cool looking armor set. It's I think it looks pretty cool. You know, it's kind of billowy, and then it has the little mini cape and stuff, but kind of an interesting one. Let's go ahead. Hopefully I do. We do have a mimic right back here. So the best way to get rid of mimics is to put them to sleep, get a few bashes in there, and now he's ready to attack us, but at this point he doesn't really have any hit points, so... Oh! I thought I already had that. Court Sorcerer's Staff. Do I now have 2 symbols of avarice? I do! That's odd. I thought you could really only get 1 through playthrough. I guess that is been debunked now. But we talked about that in a previous episode. So now let's just move on to Logan's staff. Did I give it away? Yes, this is a replica of Logan's staff from Dark Souls 1, and it looks very, very similar and kind of works in the same vein, is that it won't be particularly powerful until you get to be a high level with your intelligence. So it shows there that it starts with an A scaling, but compared to other ones, it's really gonna be outclassed by basically everything else until you hit maybe 45 or 50 intelligence. You need to have fairly high intelligence in order for this to be even reasonable. Catalyst used by the Court Sorcerers of the Profaned Capital. Very powerful when wielded by an exceptionally intelligent sorcerer. That's what I was kind of talking about before. The Court Sorcerers laid claim to the legacy of the renowned Big Hat Logan, going so far as to emulate him with copies of the staff that he used. Alright, from here we have more of these... more of the monstrosities of sin that we want to fight. Oh, how did I miss that? Come on. A Shriving Stone. We were talking a little bit about Velka before, and the Shriving Stone does have that tiny bit of... Oh, seriously? I was like, come on, stamina. I really need you right now. Let's go ahead and get rid of this toxicity. And we're going to take on more of these monstrosities. And I was saying that they are very susceptible to bleed, so the best thing you can do is really use bleed damage on them. And You saw how well that Dorothy's gnawing worked on him. Just wait until we get a sword on him. So, that one back there seems to be sucking on that statue. That's kind of what the grab attack looks like. And I believe this one back here is the one that has the interesting item. And so if we kind of just bring it out here, you really want to try to fight these guys one at a time. They're very dangerous, as I've mentioned multiple times. But as we get it out here, we'll be able to see just how much bleed just really wrecks these guys. Just, oh. Oh, I thought that I had my... Yep. He stuck me up against the wall. And reapplying Carthus Rouge was no help there. You're probably better off fighting these guys, or at least this first one, out in the swamp itself. And killing that one will net you Eleonora, along with Dung Pai. So the toxicity there isn't really going to do anything to them, but it will certainly do something to you. So we'll go ahead and take on this guy, and you can get several attacks in before he truly wakes up, which is kind of nice. But now his friend has come and joined the fight too. By that point, you've already killed the first one. He was trying to do the grab attack there. And you can see just how many hit points these guys have. Oh, unfortunately. There's the grab attack there. And polished me off. Very dangerous. I was getting too hasty with them. Well, I have to say that I've done a horrible job of showing strategy here by getting killed by these guys a few times. And they do have a number of just really interesting attacks. And, you can't always just shoot them from a distance and make it a whole lot easier. Bleed is going to be your best bet. You saw how much damage it does with just 2 strikes. So right back here we have a Purging Stone, another item that we very much associate with Velka. This is Eleonora, and a unique axe. And you can see some of the requirements there. A strange weapon found among malformed inhabitants of the Profaned Capital. To say they're malformed is an understatement. The profane flame was triggered by the curse of these women, relatives of a certain oracle. But despite their culpability, they went on living without any cares. That is horrid. So the profane flame was triggered by the curse of these women that ended up being probably changed into these monstrosities of sin, relatives of a certain oracle. And we saw with the... I changed the hat because I don't like the hat, but that these may have also been oracles. So whether the women in question here were relatives to the court sorcerers or to the original court sorcerer is, yeah, kind of interesting. But despite their culpability, they went on living without any cares. They were being horrible, horrible people living with sin, and I don't mean like little itty-bitty things. They were doing horrible stuff, apparently. And they didn't seem to care what the consequences were at all. And that brought upon the profane flame. So, I just now thought about this, but this, maybe I'm wrong, but this particular hat kind of reminds me of Pontiff Sullivan, but he wears kind of more of a crown, but it just kind of reminds me of him just a little bit. Is it Sullivan that is the oracle in question, or might it be something a little bit more ancient. Possibly the... I had thought that perhaps that this was some kind of a connection to the witches of Izalith, that their sin, or the witches' sin of trying to recreate the first flame, was was part of the part of the sin in question. But it seems that this is kind of a new sin. And the items, the Velka-related items in the area might kind of give us a clue that the gods, like Velka, that they were a part of this, and that we saw the spell Wrath of the Gods. So, not that that is particularly associated with Velka, but you know, we think about biblical tales of cities that were sinful, or rulers that were sinful, and the gods basically wiping them out because of their avarice, because of their self-centeredness, because of their arrogance, all of these things. And so these may be a lot of the properties of what was going on with the Profaned Capital. And I just want to use an ember, mostly for hit points. We're going to go down and get down with some boss battles here. And as we run over this way, we can actually find a weapon. And we'll have to take a look at that when we're somewhere a little bit more safe. This is not so great when we're getting huge fireballs thrown at us and hitting us in the head. So while we're down here, let's go ahead and grab this item here. Just a rusted coin. And these are, well, they're called handmaids, but they're not exactly like the shrine handmaid. Let me go ahead. Maybe I'll wait to kill him before I pull up that bow. Oops. There's another item hiding right back here. Another rusted coin. So we found quite a few of these in the area, actually. And you'll notice that they have the ability to shoot flames from their lanterns. They look almost exactly like the jailers up above, but their garb is a different color. And they show a tendency of using fire damage rather than whatever strange... Well, I guess the jailers had their soldering iron that did fire damage also. So this is the dagger used by handmaids of the Profaned Capital. Each successful attack replenishes a slight amount of focus points. And where it says replenishes a slight amount of focus points, it's 1. So it should say, well, I guess it does just say a slight amount of FP, just the 1 focus point. It is said that these women took pleasure in wounding others. So we see another group of women that are just horrible, horrible people. So it just kind of seems like no wonder that that basically the fires rained down upon them. There was a cleansing of the Profaned Capital, and it was the people here that were the things that were attempted to be cleansed. I'm just going to go ahead and get a few more hit points here. We're about to jump into a boss battle, as you can tell by the fog gate. So if you've done everything along Siegfried's line, then he will help you out with this fight. You don't need to be kindled. You can be hollow or unkindled, either way. He'll come in. He's not a summon. He's an NPC, so it works a little bit differently this way. But let's go ahead and take a look at this fight.
Yhorm, old friend. I, Siegfried of the Knights of Catarina, have come to uphold my promise. Let the sun shine upon this Lord of Cinder.
So this is Siegfried's duty. His duty was to come in here and fight his old friend Yhorm. And you'll see me running directly to the back of the boss fight. There is a special sword here that is needed for killing the Great Wood, as that said there. Let me hurry up and put this on because I want to make sure that Siegfried survives this fight. And you'll see a very interesting attack that this does. And I completely missed with it, which is really unfortunate. I need to get Yhorm's attention because, like I said, I want Siegfried to survive this fight. And hitting Yhorm in the head will actually kind of stun him. And when he's stunned like that, that gives you an opportunity to rebuff your sword. And you need to hold down the weapon art of this for a few seconds in order for it to get the got hit again. He's generally pretty easy to dodge. His movements are big and slow, but I was just doing a terrible job there. You do a little bit more damage, too, if you actually hit him in the head. Here we go. So, yeah, more of a gimmicky, kind of a trick boss. We get the Lord of Cinders, Cinders of the Lord, I should say, and the soul of Yhorm the Giant. So let's go ahead and put this back on here, and we can talk to Siegfried.
It seems I am in your debt once again. My thanks. I could have not kept my promise without you. Now, for a final toast.
And we get a little bit more Siegfried.
To your valor, and my old friend Yhorm. Long may the sun shine.
His tone there seems a little bit different, too, from other times. He does sound a little jolly at the end there, but the way that he said, long may the sun shine, wasn't quite as optimistic as it usually is. He kind of just sounded a little bit more, I don't know, just forceful, really. Just wasn't kind of the same cheery version of himself.
Well, I'm going to have myself a little nap. The only thing to do, really, after a nice toast. You are a true friend. Best of luck with your duty. Well, you are a...
And his nap is going to be a little bit more permanent. If you exit the room, let's see if we can get visual on him. Oh, maybe you have to actually rest first. Nope. You saw the 1,000 souls come up. And now Siegfried is no longer here. We get his Storm Ruler and the Pierce Shield. And we get his armor set. And this heap of treasures and burnt corpses. This is very fitting for the area. A lot of greed, a lot of self-centeredness, and for that, the entire city was punished. And we see just tons and tons of dead bodies, just all burnt to a crisp. And then Yhorm's mighty throne. I don't blame Yhorm. When we take a look at his items, we'll see a little bit more about him, and that he really, I don't think that he was to blame. there's a lot of enemies in this area that we can just poison. So that's what we're going to do. And I'll show you that as we come back out here. Works a little better if you can turn invisible, but, you know, that's more Spelldexia's game. But we're going to come up here and let's just go ahead and let's just see if we can poison as many of these folks as possible. I want that one there. Oh, and there's the gargoyle. So now we're going to back off. We got 2 gargoyles. The gargoyles can't get through this door, so we can really just kind of focus on shooting them with the bow. And they're kind of blocking the way of these handmaids too, but... Now the area is mostly cleared out. We've got a couple more of these handmaids, and they appear to just be staring at these 2 chests here. Honestly, the handmaids in this area kind of seem like they look at stuff for no apparent reason. One thing I do want to demonstrate here, these are both mimics. You can actually poison mimics. So we'll just let that take effect, and we'll go hunt out the rest of the items in the area and come back for that. I didn't yet talk about the Anaslayer Greatbow. A unique greatbow handed down in an eastern land, where tales are told of its use in slaying giant horned Oni. And Oni are kind of a Japanese version of a demon of some kind. It's a very particular type of demon. There's very particular legends that go along with it, but I guess the easiest equivalent to say would just be like it's a type of demon. Drawing a bow of this size takes time and leaves the user vulnerable. Only specialized great arrows can be fired from the bow. And these guys aren't dead yet. All right. We can go back to the old method. That'll make things a little bit quicker. A little easier. And we can just... Oh, I got both of them with that. That's pretty nice. Here we have the Great Shield of Glory and some rusted coins. So more of these lucky little coins here. The Great Shield of Glory. A great shield adorned with flowing patterns, a celebration of an ancient glory. Boasts the highest ability of such shields, but with reduced stamina and reduced stamina regeneration speed. This will actually reduce your stamina recovery by 20 points per second. That's pretty significant. So the Dark Souls 2 description of this game says that this was the shield of the King's loyal knight Sion, but he died before the shield was ever completed. So we have the benefit of taking the shield now, I suppose. Right over here. This is not a mimic. This is an ember. There are just a couple more items that we missed along the way by taking the shortcut down to get the bow. For some reason I thought I saw a little item over there, but these guys aren't paying any attention to me. They're kind of looking at that bowl that, you know, is probably remnants of the profane flame. These handmaids are staring at the wall, but they're kind of standing in a circle or a square. No real evidence of what they're doing. They're just kind of staring. If you go the regular way, this gargoyle will stand as a barrier from crossing this path. You can very easily run right past him, but if you want to grab the item, then you have to drop down. So I just decided to grab the item instead. And once again, I'll just use this doorway as a method of bottlenecking him so that I can attack him, but he can't attack me. Here we have some souls, and actually as I run up here, those handmaids are gonna start shooting me with fire, so I'm just gonna quickly pick up these arrows that they match the bow that we found just below there. Oh, they didn't even see me. How about that? But we can take a look at these arrows. Large arrows used to destroy giant horned oni in the eastern land can only be used with great bows. Made from the feathers of an aged crow, it is said that these arrows fly as straight as their master. I don't know if the crow in question here has any relation to Velka, but anytime they say crow, that's the first thing we think. Alright, let's head back to Firelink and take a look at all of this great stuff. We can basically see most of Yhorm's entire story. There's still some mysteries there, but I think that his is actually more of a complete story than any of the others that we really see in the game. So let's head on back. Alright, now we are safe. Let's start off by looking at Yhorm's soul. Soul of Yhorm the Giant, one of Twisted Souls. We know about this top part. Yhorm is the descendant of an ancient conqueror, but was asked by the very people once subjugated to lead them, serving as both a weighty blade and a stone-hard shield. He's probably a descendant of any number of the giants that crossed the lands and oceans to fight in Drangleic. Whether he's the descendant of any particular one of those giants that we fight there, any of the boss versions, you know, there's no real way of saying, but it's very likely that he's a descendant of at least a group of them, or one of the major ones. So where it says here that, once again, just odd phrasing, but he was asked by the very people once subjugated to lead them. It seems that the ancient conqueror kind of, conquered this land, took over this land, and though that conqueror was no longer around, Yhorm was still around, and these people who were once subjugated they're no longer under the rule of that conqueror, now asked Yhorm to lead them, even though he was a descendant of that conqueror. And then it says, you know, serving as a weighty blade and a stone-hard shield. So kind of the front-of-the-line warrior, someone that could both attack and defend, and probably against the profane flame, is what they needed him for. So now we've got 2 storm rulers. You can't sell these, so the only thing you can really do is just hide these in your inventory. So greatsword with a broken blade, also known as the Giant Slayer, for the residual strength of storm that brings giants to their knees. And it does say strength of storm. This is actually an item from Dark Souls 1. And it was used in a very similar manner. You needed to go run all the way across the boss room, pick it up in order to fight the boss. It was really, well, like the Yhorm fight, you can fight him and win without using this weapon, but it is by far the easiest way, and it is the intended way to fight the battle. Yhorm the Giant held 2 of these, or once held 2 of these, but gave one to the humans who doubted him, and left the other to a dear friend before facing his fate as a Lord of Cinder. So that other dear friend was Siegvard, and so we saw his duty being completed, and that's why Siegvard still held the Storm Ruler, because he needed it in order to complete his duty. And so it seems that, you know, by giving this to Siegvard, Yhorm basically asked him, hey, things could go wrong here. If you need to kill me, this is the best way to do it. So the skill is the Storm King, assumes stance to imbue sword with storm, most effective when facing giants. It's really only Yhorm that this is effective against. It doesn't do anything to any other giants. But remember this line here, he gave one to the humans who doubted him. So now let's take a look at his cinders. They would be over here. Cinders of a lord left by Yhorm the Giant. If the lords will not return to their thrones, kill them and bring them back as cinders. I'm paraphrasing. Lonely Yhorm became a lord of Cinder to put the profane flame to rest, knowing full well that those who spoke of him as lord were quite insincere. So they asked him to be this front-of-the-line defense against the profane flame, but they did so kind of mockingly. They didn't really believe him to be a lord, and, well, he became a lord of Cinder, but those people, they thought very poorly of him, so I don't know why he would actually go and defend them. Maybe some of these items that Ludleth will have will tell us a little bit more about it. We start down here with a shield. Now, we didn't see Yhorm use this, but we'll see why in just a moment. Great Shield, used long ago by Yhorm the Giant, increases the user's poise. And this will actually increase your poise by 45 points, so a pretty significant amount, though it is a very heavy item, so it kind of makes sense that this giant steel or iron shield would actually do that. As a lord, Yhorm risked everything and fought unflinchingly as a one-man vanguard. Following the loss of the one he wished to protect, he forsook his shield. So it seems that there was probably someone that he truly loved in the Profaned Capital, and that's why he fought. But once that loved one died, he got rid of the shield, and we'll see a little bit more about that on the Great Machete here. Wielded long ago by Yhorm the Giant, or just moments ago, really. Yhorm once lumbered on the front lines with a great shield, but one day, in place of his shield, a left-hand notch was added to his machete, enabling the smashing technique that would become the legacy of his later years. So as we saw with the shield, he got rid of the shield, and then made this item kind of viable as a two-hand weapon too. He failed at defending the one that he loved, and so he focused his efforts on attacking.
Now, do not.
Now at this point there is a spell that we picked up a while back, and it's actually over here. I thought that I still had it on me. And that is the Profane Flame. So much like the Profaned Capital is called the City of Sin in the Japanese version, the literal Japanese translation of the Profane Flame is Fire of Sin. So anytime in any one of the descriptions, wherever it says Profane Flame, it actually says Fire of Sin. So it seems that this idea of this flame that was engulfing the city was actually a flame born of sin. So whether it was related to, say, the bed of chaos that was created out of a sinful act of trying to recreate the first flame, or whether it was the original sin, as far as Dark Souls goes, which is linking the fire and prolonging the flame when it should have actually gone dark and the Age of Man began, or if this is an entirely new one brought on by just the horrible naturedness of the people of the Profaned Capital, or the City of Sin. And once again we see here that the Profaned Capital was consumed by fire after Yhorm became a Lord of Cinder. So he went through all this effort to try to protect these people from the Profane Flame, and he went on and became a Lord of Cinder in hopes that that would be the resolution. Instead, the Profane Flame then incinerated naught but human flesh. Everything was left behind except for the people. Those people that were so awful were completely engulfed by this flame, and all of their treasures were left behind. And so I kind of made religious references before, and this is, in a sense, this is kind of like Noah's Ark, and everything was covered in water, but in this case, it was fire that did the bathing and not water. And we've seen a lot of different enemies kind of being influenced by the profane flame, from a lot of the inhabitants that still remain down in the profane capital, all the way up through the Irithyll dungeon, and even Irithyll itself, with the flame witches and the jailers being kind of the primary ones. And we've seen, like the Abyss does a very similar thing, the way that it kind of satiated Ulasil and changed it in a way. But the profane flame here kind of has had a similar parasitic effect on the people that have been near it. Now, I initially thought that the profane flame was possibly an evolution of the Beta Chaos, and it very well may be. And I thought that having a lot to do with, the sin of the Witch of Izalith, and the fact that the Profane Capital is very, very close to Izalith, it's possible that it kind of seeped over and had that parasitic effect that we saw with the Abyss. But it seems that there are kind of things that are abyssal in nature within the Profane Capital. Those monstrosities of sin are actually considered abyssal creatures and can be damaged more by, the abyss swords that we get from the Abyss Watchers themselves, that do the 20% extra damage to abyssal creatures. Monstrosities of sin fall under that jurisdiction. But based on the items that we've found, I've kind of come up with what I believe to be a timeline. And, this is kind of a joking little thing here, but I wrote this down in my notes, and I kind of wanted to share with you the timeline that I've decided was the Profane Capital. So they were seeing the profane flame kind of lingering about, this flame of sin, because of their horrible deeds and their self-centeredness and just downright awfulness. And so the people of the Profane Capital come to Yhorm and say, "Hey, I know your ancestor once conquered our people, but we could really use your help against the threat that we call the Profane Flame." And then Yhorm says back, "Well, you can count on me. I will be a weighty blade and smite your foes, but I'll also be a stone-hard shield and protect you from harm." And then Yhorm thinks to himself, the best way to stop the Profane Flame would be to link the fire and become a Lord of Cinder. And the people of the Profane Capital look at him and they say, "You? A lord? Preposterous." But then Yhorm says, "Oh, you think you can do better? Well, here's a Storm Ruler, the only weapon I am weak against. Strike me down if you think that you can." And nobody does that because they're all just jerks and think only of themselves. Then Yhorm speaks with Siegvard and gives him the other Storm Ruler and says to him, "I don't know what's going to happen if I become a Lord of Cinder. Take the Storm Ruler and promise me that you will end me if things go to hell." Siegvard agrees, drinks some Siegbrew, and takes a nap. Then Yhorm links the flame and becomes the Lord of Cinder. Then the Profane Flame kills all the people in the Profane Capital, but leaves everything else untouched. Then Yhorm thinks to himself, "I really sucked at protecting everyone, especially the one I held most dear. Maybe I should ditch my shield and focus on smashing things." Then Siegvard, being a man of his words, journeys back to the Profane Capital and helps us kill Yhorm for sucking at life. So that is the story of Yhorm. I didn't do any cool visuals. Maybe I'll just play a little bit of Speldexia's fight against him. And in Speldexia's fight, I actually got Siegvard killed because I was focusing on just messing around with the magic shield spell, because it just totally negates everything that Yhorm does. But yeah, that's gonna do it. This wasn't really a lore video of Yhorm. I guess, I didn't do the same visuals, but that's kind of how I imagine the storyline of Yhorm going. And like I said earlier on in the episode, it's kind of the most clear out of any of the other ones. But like we saw with Yhorm, we know that when the Abyss Watchers after they linked the fire, that's when things kind of went to hell in Farron Keep, and Farron Keep kind of sunk down into the swamp. So people are being punished for linking the fire, and whether it's actually Velka that's doing the punishing, we may see. There seems to be, and as of this recording, it seems that the first DLC is going to have a lot to do with Velka, and so maybe some of those questions will be answered there. But my goal for this playthrough is to really focus on the lore of the game outside of, or within the game itself, and not looking at the DLC. I may add additional episodes on once we play some of the DLC, but that'll be further down the line. And so at this point, I'll just thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, and if you're enjoying this playthrough, please hit that like button and share with your friends that you think will also like this stuff. If you have any ideas about the lore that we've discussed, or if you think that things are just completely different from what I said, leave a comment below, and we can hash it out. And if you aren't subscribing, that's really the best way to get the video. So hit that subscribe button, and then it's just easier to see the next video. Well, thanks again for watching. Next time we will head back to the end of Irithyll and make our way to Anor Londo. So until next time, thanks again for watching, and we will see you then.